live.
So we are live
Um, yeah, yeah,
on the
we
chat
are.
because I don't have that dialed in over here for people seeing us right now.
All
Oh,
right.
it says right now, Monday Live. It just came up on my phone. There we are on
Hey,
the
it
chat.
worked. It
I don't have that
worked.
dialed in over here. People seeing us right now. Hey, everybody.
There, there it is.
Oh, it says right now, Monday Live. Just came up on my phone. There we are. Hey.
It worked. Is that me or is that you?
Okay, that's right now. Hey, everybody.
Is that your volume or mine?
Oh, yeah, that's me on my phone. Yeah, sorry. There we
All
go.
right.
Yeah, we're getting thumbs up on your chat. So I'm watching your chat on my phone.
Okay. All right. So we're live. Uh, I don't know. After my boondoggle with Rumble yesterday, I was just like, I don't even know. I guess I should just, if I just exclusively used Rumble, then it wouldn't be an issue anymore. But it's just like, it's such a pain in the butt to use it, you know?
Well, here's part of the problem. And everyone is joining our living room right now as we're having this discussion. But here's the problem with Rumble is none of us who do what we do are really able to get people to move over to Rumble. Everyone wants to keep on using YouTube, and YouTube has its share of issues. And I think it's great to use YouTube, by the way, everyone. But I think that everyone should also have Rumble, well, because we're also on Rumble, and have our app. I don't know if you have an app or not, Pete, but any of the people that you follow to have all of their other uh, areas that they post on, because you just have issues with YouTube.
Yeah. Well, hello everyone. Greetings and salutation to the 310 tribe. Uh, Welcome on board, Pastor Curt Reed from Harvest Life Church in Las Vegas. Good to have you on, Brother Curt.
Glad to be on. Glad to be on.
You
I
know
see
who?
Pookie. I see
Pookie.
Pookie is saying hi, Kathy Reed. Is my wife on? That- That's funny. All right. Well,
This is all right. All right. So we're going. I have an ambitious. I didn't even get a chance to tell you what I was going to talk about today. So you're coming into this kind of cold. You got some stuff, but we're gonna hit January 6th cautiously. Talk about Canada. I want to talk
oh
about
yeah.
CERN opening portals. I want to talk about the Pope opening doors.
Oh,
I want to talk about the Dogman, Sasquatch, Ghost, Haunting, Paranormal, UFOs, UAP, and then the Wes Huff and the Billy Carson debate. You think, in my mind, this all flows together because I can tie them all together. So that's where I don't know if you're on board with that or not. We can always talk about something, less controversial like King James only, flat Earth, whatever, wherever you want to go.
I love all the controversial stuff. Let's stir the pot. No,
Oh man, you talk about stirring the pot. That would totally stir the pot. All right. Well,
oh
hey,
yeah.
welcome everybody. Um, I was on Rumble yesterday. If you caught the beginning of our chat, if you didn't watch the video, I go into all the crazy stuff, and in Rumble, you can kind of talk about whatever you don't have to worry about being censored on Rumble. So if you're into that sort of thing, look me up. It's on my Telegram. I posted a link to it yesterday. Check it out. Ignore that you can fast forward the first like 5 minutes because I was on Rumble trying to figure out if I was live or not, and then Titus was in there, and so me and him are goofing around doing stuff. And not, I mean, there's nothing salacious or anything, just me in there, staring idiotically at the screen like, oh, am I doing this right? And like I said earlier, it is such a hassle to like edit videos on Rumble. I guess if you're not in a premium subscriber where you have to like, and honestly, running this ministry, and I'm sure good and well, like I do, you got to pay for Rumble Premium. You got to pay for all of your social media if you want any type of kind of creator, editor type of roles in there. I must have like I probably have like 5 or 6 subscriptions to just social media stuff that I have to do just to put out things, be able to edit stuff. So I don't know if you have that same problem. I guess you do with the church and the
Well,
platforms.
Jeremy handles all of that, so I don't have to worry about it. You know, he's young and techie, so yeah, so he works on all that kind of stuff, you know. But yeah, I appreciate that we have all of the technologies and things at our disposal, but it takes equipment, it takes funds for all of that stuff too, you know, and then equipment wears out and yada yada yada. So
Well, I need a Jeremy. So you have a Jeremy, I need a Jeremy. I don't know. I need somebody that's tech savvy that can just push stuff out all the time. I do want to share this with the audience because I found this the other day. Let me see if I can find it. Oh my goodness. Let me actually, let me open it up first and then on my computer and then I'll show everybody. But
yeah, it's like I
hey,
said,
go ahead, go ahead.
it's like I said to you a little while ago. By the way, I'm seeing on the screen here it's saying Jeremy Reed, so he's got to change that.
Dude, he's famous.
An infamous.
All right, I found infamous. Yeah. Um, so as I was going through a lot of these topics, so today is kind of like a rabbit trail. My I'm pretty famous for my rabbit trails, but it's like a rabbit trail and it's all connected. And I want to show people how it's connected, even though it doesn't seem like it's connected. So that's hence the title Buckle Up. But let me share this with you guys real fast. I found this, I haven't seen this in years. I knew I had it, I just didn't know where. Um, can you guys see that? If you can see that, give me a thumbs up in the chat or a prayer of hands or something. Can you see that, Curt?
Oh, I do now. I do now. I do now. Good old Missler.
Yeah, man. Because I was going through all of the different videos looking up, CERN and portal and portals and things, and I just kept running into Missler everywhere. And this guy was like 15 years ahead of all of us, maybe 20 years ahead of all of us, man. He was talking about this stuff back in the 90s. Everybody thought he was cuckoo back then, because he was just so forward thinking. Anyways, yeah,
Right,
man, what a
right.
good guy. Yeah, that was totally cool.
The guy is so intelligent. It's not even funny.
I don't remember what year this was. This was probably 2 to 3 years before he passed. But yeah, I remember this conference. I can't remember the year though. I ate lunch with him actually. Um, I was in the front of the lobby of the pre-trip conference there in Dallas, and again, I don't remember the year. And I think Chuck Missler passed in 2017, 2018.
A few years ago.
Yeah,
It's a good few
and
years
so
ago,
this
at
would
least. Yeah.
this would have been a few years before that, a couple of years before that. But I'm just hanging out outside. I don't know anybody. I'm a writer for the Omega Letter, so a couple of people knew me there, but only after talking to me because my photo on my Omega Letter was real small. But once they saw my name, they're like, "Are you the guy from the Omega Letter?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me." So I'm just hanging out, minding my own business, trying to look at stuff, and I see Chuck, or actually Chuck comes out and says hi to me, and he's like, "Hey," and it was right around lunchtime, and there wasn't everybody had already kind of cleared out, and I guess I was like the last person in the room. He's like, "Hey, you want to eat some lunch?" I was like, "Heck yeah!" So, anyways, that was kind of a cool. It was a cool moment in my
Yeah,
life to
he's a
meet
pretty
him.
awesome guy.
Anyhow,
Hey,
I met.
we
I
also
got.
should talk a little bit about fog, you know. That whole
Can we?
thing.
I
We can
mean, I
talk
don't know.
about fog. We can talk about the explosion at Trump Tower. Oh, no, there's so many things. There's so many things going on, guys. It's not even funny.
Well, let me just get this admin stuff out of the way and we'll pray and then get started. But admin stuff, next Monday, or actually tomorrow, I'll be on with Tom Hughes around noon Central Standard Time. And then that following Monday, I'll be on with Lauren Karen. And then I think the end of the month, I'm going to be on with Carol Vay. And that's the next three that I know for sure. Um, and then Blink is my book is coming out. I've got it's going through like a second edit edition, and I need to add in the comments from um, some folks that are going to do some read aheads. I'll send you the read ahead too if you want to read it or just glance over. You don't have to read the whole thing. It's going to end up being like 60,000 words or something. That's a lot, but getting those put in, and then hopefully I can get it published through a particular publishing company. So I'm waiting for some feedback on that. And I think that's it for me. Do you got anything coming up? When's your Blazing Saddles conference?
That's coming up the 17th, 18th, then 19th of January. So like 2 weeks away, a little less than 2 weeks away, technically. And so that's going to be good. You know, we got Don Perkins and Tom Hughes, of course, because it's a Hope for Our Times conference, and it's going to be at our church. And of course, Billy and Brandon and myself, and yeah, looking forward to that. I hope you guys can join in on that. Fly on out here and get your tickets. You get your tickets through Hope for Our Times for that. For those that can't make it out here, of course, you can watch online and you'll have, I think it's like a 30-day kind of thing that you can keep on watching that for and everything. But yeah, it'd be pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I guess
So,
the question everybody wants to know is why is it called Blazing Saddles?
why is it called Blazing Saddles? Well, I think two reasons here because we're out here in the wild, wild west, and and the conference at Billy Crone's church, I don't know, a couple months back, 2, 3 months ago, whatever it is now, was the Three Amigos. So we go from the Three Amigos to Blazing Saddles, so because Billy's church is about 45 minutes away from mine, maybe 40, it depends, probably 40, 45 minutes away. Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah,
So, yeah, we got that going on, and of course, you and me and Lee are going to be there in Ireland. We got that
yeah.
coming up in less than 2 months, I think. With that,
Did you already get your tickets?
yeah, yeah, it's already done.
Yeah. I was trying to find that comment from um, the Three Amigos. Uh, is like El Guapo, what is a plethora? Or the guy's like, would you say I have a plethora of I forget what it was. He goes, what's a plethora? Or he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And he goes, do you know what a plethora is? He's like, oh, you won't be able to do a lot of quotes from Blazing Saddles in your conference, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Excuse me while no, I don't even want to go there. Yeah, that's a movie that would never see the light of day in a modern theater. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of things that wouldn't. We're so politically correct, Uh,
Do you ever watch those reaction videos where people like see something for the first time and you watch their reaction? So they do a lot of like they'll screen that movie Blazing Saddles in front of black audiences and stuff. And dude, they are just dying laughing. Like they are not offended at all. Like it is just the most hilarious thing. And I'm not saying it's good Christian fun or anything. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that, I guess back in the day we could just laugh at ourselves a little easier. Like it was easier to laugh at
Mhm.
ourselves. Um, uh, I know in the army,
Maybe not take everything
what
so seriously.
oh yeah, yeah. I posted on Facebook back, I think this was like the day or maybe a few days after the whole George Floyd thing. And it was right when it was at the height of everybody was super like racially charged stuff. I posted on there something to the effect that, when I was in basic training, I mean, I don't to me, the color, skin, all that stuff doesn't even matter anymore. Like, because that got all washed out of me in basic training. Um, because you go in there and everybody, they straight up, man, everybody, you're all piles of crap. You're all just big turds. And by the end of basic training, we're going to try and polish you up, and you'll just be polished turds. And then it's much more vulgar than that. And then actually, when we graduated to become maggots. So we became we became maggots at graduation, and that was everybody, white, black, Asian, didn't matter. I mean, we're all kind of in the same boat. And I don't know. I just never. I don't know. There's just that is such a trivial thing to be focused on. I mean, especially in today's day and age where you got people identifying as dogs and cats and people marrying trees and the ocean. I think somebody married the moon, and yeah, I mean, it just
No,
got
they're
weird.
marrying themselves. They're marrying themselves. Have you seen that? And having a
No,
whole ceremony. It's like,
do they
you know
do
what
they
gets
get
me though?
double
You know what?
benefits?
Listen. Here's the thing that gets me. All right, is I mean, people are going to be crazy. You know, you got some of these people that are mentally ill. You got other people that are just spiritually deranged, and then you got those that are a mixture of both of those things, right? So yeah, we know that. But what blows my mind is how you have these wackadoo politicians that are that are playing that game along with them. You know, it's the emperor's new clothes kind of thing. You know, and I'm like, and then you've got the populace that'll believe anything that comes from the lame stream media. And yeah, I did say that intentionally, lame stream media, or from the Biden regime and cackling Kamala, and you name it. They'll believe anything that they say. You know, I mean, think about this. Hillary Clinton just got the what was it? The presidential medal of it should have been the Medal of Dishonor, guys. Come on. The Medal of Dishonor. They give her the Medal of Honor for what? For what?
Yeah,
But remember, what was it? Barack Obama, right? I mean, literally, he hadn't even had the opportunity to do anything, good or bad, in office, and they were already giving him the Nobel Peace Prize. Wasn't it the Nobel Peace Prize for
hmm
for what?
yeah.
I don't, man. I just don't get it.
I think they're gaslighting us. I think Tom was talking about this
Totally.
the other day. They're doing that to get, especially George Soros. I mean, he's not even what. Hey, okay, so let's get going. Obviously today's January 6th, a very consequential day in our nation's history, a day of infamy, according to the media, a day of gaslighting to the rest of us.
Oh, big
I
time.
feel like um, the hypocrisy. I mean, really, you could see the total hypocrisy from the media, from the left, from corporations when they refused to call all the rioting and protests during the Summer of Love in 2020. They refused. They called it mostly peaceful protests, or whether it got mostly peaceful riots or whatever. And you've got the cities burning down behind you. I mean, it was probably what a good 4 or 5 cities where things got really out of control. DC, New York, Los Angeles, Portland, I'm sure Chicago, maybe St. Louis. I mean, there was most of your major cities had major issues, and yet they keep addressing January 6th as the day of an attack. And I'm like, dude, I mean and now all of the fact that everything, the light has been shown on it, and we know that there was FBI agents there helping instigate the things, Ray Epps, all of the whole 9 yards with um, the instigators. Yeah, there were some bad actors in there, but I mean, by and far, I mean, there were tens of thousands of people, and you had a fraction of a fraction that were actually doing bad things. But the hypocrisy was on steroids there, and I think from that moment forward, for me, it was just like this whole thing. You want to have some faith in the system that the ship is going to right itself, and it kind of did here in this last election in 2024. The ship righted itself, but having to watch all of that go down, is incredibly frustrating. And so, yeah, today is definitely a charged day. I would hope that day one of Trump's presidency, by executive order, whatever he releases, or um, pardons all of the J6 folks. I mean, without exception. I mean, unless they actually broke crimes or did crimes that was worthy of that jail
Uh,
sentence. But
Well,
unless they didn't, they should be out.
yeah, well, there are some that did commit crimes that day. Okay.
Mm.
But from what I see, the way the majority of them should be released. And I do have to say it was an attack that day, but it wasn't the attack that they said it was. The attack came from the Biden regime. The attack came from the FBI. The attack came from the deep state. Okay, but yes, it was an attack. It was an attack against our. I almost said democracy, but I hate that word. Actually, it was an attack against our republic. All right, it truly was. But I do believe that the majority of those should be released. And guys, I started talking about this a little bit more, kind of let it lay low for a little while because I was talking about it quite a bit there for a while. Let it lay low for a while, and then this came out. I don't know. Can you guys see this right here?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, this right here came out however many weeks ago now. The interim report of the failures of politicization of the, I like to say, month after December, day after the 5th Select Committee. You all know what we're talking about there. This was prepared at the direction of Chairman Barry Loudermilk of the 118th Congress, December 17th, 2024. This is official stuff. This is official stuff, guys. And what's in it is exactly the things. I mean, look, I got all these tabs on here and some pretty significant stuff in here. What's in this is absolutely, I mean, it just should just blow the top off of everything here of what happened, what's going on in America. It should blow the lid off of things. But what happens is when this information officially comes out, all right, we've been saying it for a while, but when it officially comes out, right, by that time people have moved on to the next thing. They've moved on to fog. They've moved on to a cyber truck at Trump Hotel, about 20 minutes away from my house. Okay, they we're talking about other things now. And in fact, that's all about ready to become, yesterday's news too. Because see, here's the thing. Everything is moving at such an incredible and rapid rate of speed right now. I think it was John Holler that said, "Hey, it used to come out of our little water hose in our front yard. Now it's coming out of a fire hose, and we're just like we're buffeted by this stuff. We can't keep up. I can barely keep up. I'm sure you can barely keep up. And we're just chasing this stuff like there's no tomorrow, guys. But guys, honestly, there are some really wicked and evil things that are taking place in some dark places of the US government here. And I think people really need to wake up to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's going to tie into what we're going to talk about today, especially with CERN and the Pope and some other stuff. But before we go there, I do want to touch on Canada. You were the one that told me that Trudeau was out. I didn't even hear that. You were the first person to tell me that. And I
Yeah,
went and looked at it. I
Trudeau's
was like,
well,
holy moly, he is. Yeah. And
yeah,
I mentioned
Trudeau's out.
I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I thought Trudeau would be out very pretty quickly, and some of the Canadians in the chat were like, he thinks he's royalty. He's going to be in there. He's going to fight tooth and nail. I was like, I don't know. I saw the winds of change were blowing that guy down constantly. I didn't see him staying in office very long. So I imagine Pierre Polyev, I think is how I say his name, Polyev, is should be positioned to be their next prime minister. And he seems fairly conservative politically. I don't know much about him. I think he's a business guy, billionaire, millionaire, or something.
He would
But
he would come in he would come into Trump's kind of orb of of
Oh yeah.
things if he should actually get it. When I and by the way, I just wanted to say hi there, Mama Garcia. I see you're on right now. So good to see you. But and by the
Yeah.
way, I think there was I think Keith on there put on there a little while ago. Is that Curt? Yeah, it's me. I know it says Jeremy Reed down there. We got to change that. But yeah, it's me. This is what I look like all the rest of the time. Just bumming like this, and just from my home office here. Um,
Glo-
but yeah.
Gloria
So and when
Gloria
I say
Minix.
what's that?
I say Gloria Minix. I'm just looking on the chat, catch up on the chat now. She says, Pete, you're my favorite maggot.
My favorite Maggie. That's hilarious. That's hilarious. And when I say that Trudeau is out, I mean technically he is still in that position right now, but they've got to go through the process of all of that.
Yeah.
But he's not going to fight what he sees as his inevitable end. Is pretty much what he came out and said. He's not going to fight it. He basically sees the proverbial writing on the wall. And hi there, Donna Gal. Good to see you. Hi there, Kelly Schultz. Look, gangsta. Yeah, that's me all rest of the time. So that's a typical
I
Monday
think
for me. Is but yeah,
I think
but he is on his way out, and let's understand that this guy, Justin Trudeau. I mean, man, he's a darling of the World Economic Forum and of the Klaus Club. You know, he's his little you know he's his little puppet. So yeah, things are changing. But I do want to say this, guys. Though, don't don't be fooled into thinking that things are changing for the good, because God. I say this all the time. God is sovereign, and the prophetic time clock of what is going to be is moving forward. All right, and everything is ultimately going um, to move in that direction. All of the things that are happening right now, we're seeing a lot of geopolitical changes, not only in America, guys. I mean, look, we're seeing America, we're seeing Canada, the Middle East. Middle East is crazy. I was talking about this a little bit again last night because I mean, our main focus always needs to be over there. If you don't understand what's going on in Israel and what's going on in the Middle East, then you're just not going to get it. You're really not. And we're seeing all of those. Maybe I should do it this way for the screen there. All of those that are surrounding Israel right now. All right, God's taking them out. God's taking them out. Things are the geopolitics. Everything is just it's crazy over there, and it needs to be because it's setting up for Ezekiel 38.
yeah. Damon Duck had written an article that just came out, I guess, this past week, and he had mentioned that he thinks that Israel is being strengthened right now for what's about to come. Like they're being put in a position of um, re rearming, re-strengthening their positions politically, geopolitically, economically, diplomatically, etc. That this is all going to be leading up to that time of peace that is preceded or that precedes the Gog Magog conflict, Ezekiel 38. So I think that makes a lot of sense actually when you look at it that way,
Mhm.
that God is preparing Israel to go through the really the worst 7 years of their history. So it makes sense that
Right.
he puts them in a position of the 7 good years, so to speak. But the Israel, I think right now, Israel is going to have to annex Judea and Samaria in order to achieve that level of peace that they're wanting to do. And I've been talking
It's
about
going to
this for a
happen.
few weeks now. But I think
It's going to
with Trump
happen.
coming on,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's
You
going to
got
annex it.
former Governor Huckabee, who I mean that man he loves Jesus, guys. All right, he loves the Lord, and he's a good man, and he is at least currently he's there on Team Trump, and um, he's a good person to have on that team, and he stands by Israel like there is no tomorrow. All right, so all I can say is. He's I could not begin to ever foresee anything that he would do. Speaking of I still call him Governor Huckabee, but I guess now about to be Ambassador Huckabee, would do that would go against that. And they made it clear that this is the direction that they need to go. Judea and Samaria, it technically belongs to Israel, guys. Historically, this is Israel. All right, it belongs to Israel. The Golan Heights belong to Israel too. So, and I know that Syria. I don't know if you're aware of this or not, Pete, but Syria is or this new uh, Islamic regime, and they're evil. I talked about that last night too, past couple weeks. But
HTS.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they're evil guys. They've made it clear they intend to march on Israel. See what they say in one place, and then what they say publicly when they're wearing their shirts and ties and suits are another thing. This is a common tactic within Islam, guys. This is a common tactic. I mean, back in the days, if you remember Yasser Arafat, he would talk nice when he's with I think it was with Clinton and that kind of stuff. But then he talks another way when he's down there with his people. And we've got the recordings of these things. All right. The same thing from what's the PA, the Palestinian Authority guy, Mahmoud Abbas. He's another terrorist, just like what's his name? He's another terrorist there. All right. And what they say when they have, U.S. News, kind of interviewing them is one thing, and what they say there with their people is another. And again, we've got it all on tape, so you can't trust these guys. All right, don't be fooled into thinking that what's going on with Syria right now is good. You got, in fact, I said this last night, Pete. It's like in L.A. You've got the Bloods and the Crips. All right. Hey, when the Bloods make a hit on the Crips, and you're like, oh, all right, there's another one of these Crips that's out of the picture. Guys, it's the bad guys fighting the bad guys. There's no good guys here. All right. It's the same thing with Russia, Ukraine, and NATO, I would say too. It's the same thing. All right. You just got one guy that's moved in, one bad guy that's taken over after another bad guy. Don't be fooled.
Yeah, I don't. In fact, I think they're trying to pressure Israel to give up that land that they encroached in on with the buffer, what used to be the buffer zone. I don't think Israel's going to give that back, nor should they.
Nor
And
should they.
I think
Be very
I
unwise.
think I think between that and annexing the Judea and Samaria areas, here's the problem with the two state solution that's always been an issue. It's not two states; it's like three states. You've got Hamas in Gaza. You've got the Palestinian Authority in what they call the West Bank, and you've got Israel. Hamas is not going to submit to the PA. The PA is not going to submit to Hamas. Neither side wants to come to the negotiating table. Not they haven't for the last 20 years or so. So that deal is dead. It's dead. It's gone. What they may end up doing if Israel annexes Israel if Israel annexes Judea and Samaria completely and completely occupy that, not occupy but settle it, move in and take over, that they will have to move those Arabs to another place and consolidate them somewhere, whether they consolidate them down in some kind of reconstructed Gaza that's overseen by US and IDF soldiers, or there's going to be some having to work. They're going to have to do some kind of some workaround for the two-state solution, because the two-state solution is dead, and they know it's dead. It's been dead. There's no way to do it. Um, I don't know. I could see them consolidating all of them down in Gaza with some new type of government system over them that Israel has partial control over. Same with the U.S. And I don't think they would let the UN back in there. Um, but yeah, I
No.
think they're having Israel. And here's what's crazy. Somebody had mentioned, is Trudeau, if the U.S., because Trump was you know um, mocking Trudeau by calling him Governor Trudeau and then calling Canada the 51st state, etc. But if that were to happen, and the U.S. also gets Greenland, doesn't that kind of sets us up for a joint currency, unified current, like a regional type of currency? In my mind, it makes sense that it would become a regional currency because they know, as much as Elon Musk has said that he's got a plan to get the GDP down to a manageable level. That doesn't matter to me because the whole world's moving into these central bank digital currencies. So even if the U.S. gets our financial act straight, the world's still moving on to a digital system. So either the U.S. joins on board, or they, uh, or and they get on board with the central bank digital currency scheme that everybody else is using, or we don't, and we become this like antiquated holdout. We're still using Confederate dollars, like it'd be like the South still using Confederate dollars, refusing to use greenbacks uh, uh, after the war is over with. So the world's going to move on towards central bank digital currencies because they are not protected under the same constitution that we are. They don't have those same constraints. And I feel like I'm not saying that the U.S. would take over Canada or even Greenland per se, but what I'm saying is, if with a friendly Canadian government coming in, if a very pro-Canadian uh, president like Trump is pro-Canada, he wants Canada to succeed. He wants Canada to make Canada great again. He wants that for Canada. He doesn't want Canada leeching off the United States in abusing that relationship that is very one-sided in terms of business deals, etc. So I don't know. I could see all of this area becoming together in some type of a regional force. And then on top of that, then economic crisis happens, and that forces us to all kind of get on the same currency. If that makes sense. But
Yeah,
if
he give me like 30 seconds. I got to step away for just a moment. My wife
okay,
locked
yeah,
herself out of the house, and I'll be right back in. Okay, hold on just 1 minute.
all right. So while he's out, I'm gonna look through the chat real quick. So my mom's on. Hey, mom. Dan is on. Kelly, Carrie, Pookie, Sir Pierce the Veil, Lindy, Dora, Coco, Hermie, Arrow Whisper, Gregory Young, Greg, Hudson, Allison Stolmeyer. I can never say that right. Stolmeyer. Am I saying that correct, Allison? Asset Ministries, KG Saved by Faith and Grace, Deborah, Mr. Pocket Full of Steel. Let's see. Who am I forgetting? Cavalier 973, Caterlin, Gwen Stone, Pookie, Daisy Fins, and I got you Coco, and Anthony Brown, Everything Jesus, Nathan, Pocket, I got Pocket Donegal, who else? Jill Masota, Masota, um, Kelly Schultz. Okay, I'm going way back now. All right. Well, welcome, guys. Glad you're on with us. Just Country Girl, thank you, Jesus. Retro Reviews, Tego, Arcana, Die. Am I saying that right? Rafiki, hello. All right.
Rafiki.
Let's talk about portals, and I want to derive this in a particular direction because I think they're connected. So we know that CERN is this what is it, a 17-mile loop or track that goes underneath the border there of France and Switzerland. I think it's a 17-mile loop where it's a large hadron collider. They collide particles together. They've been trying to find the Higgs boson God particle. Um, they are also admittedly wanting to see if they can open doors to other places, other dimensions, either to push something through or to have something come through that. Let me stop here real quick on CERN because I feel like CERN, what we're doing is very Tower of Babel esque. If I'm, do you feel that way too? Like we're at that point now where we're beginning to like monkey with the fabric of reality. Like we're beginning to put touch things we're not supposed to touch necessarily. Do you think we're at that stage or no?
Oh, I think we've been at that stage, Pete. We've been at that stage. Things that we talk about today, to be honest with you, are technically already old news. The technologies that they are uh, working on, the things that they're doing right now, we probably won't hear about for a good few years, for the most part. That's just how it tends to go, especially when those things are taking place in the military, even more so. You know, and yeah, whether you're talking about the Hadron Collider, CERN, all this stuff, well, whether you're talking about chimeras, I've talked about that, and I mean, folks, they're doing this stuff. They're literally playing Frankenstein with these different parts of, pigs and uh, monkeys and all of that. They're doing it a lot in China, um, other parts of the world as well. And it's true. I mean, they really are. They're experimenting with these things, just like they've been experimenting with OI, which is organoid intelligence, and building these little what we would call like little micro brains or mini brains. All right. And they're able to get them to survive for short periods of time. And the purpose, or I believe what they're ultimately wanting to do, is to mesh together mind and machine. That's what they're wanting to do. Put together mind and
Yeah.
machine. And I don't know. I just think, to me, it just makes me think of Genesis, or not Genesis, Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13 is just an incredible. I talk about it a lot because it's absolutely an insane, incredible chapter in the Bible and in Bible prophecy. And I just see Revelation 13 there. But yeah, crazy stuff.
Well, yeah, I know that I know CERN's been at this for a while. And there's a video or a picture of there's a weather phenomena happening above CERN as it's operating one day. I thought I had a photo of it. And it's
Hmm.
just absolutely crazy when you look at it. It looks like it's opening a portal to another dimension. And I don't know if I have it this accessible, but I find that interesting in light of the fact that we are now in 2025. This is a jubilee year for the Catholic Church. So their jubilees are 25 years, whereas the jubilees in the Jewish tradition in the law is 50 years. Um, and I think that changed in the year. I was in the Middle Ages when it changed that. They dropped it down, I think, or something to that effect, or they begin to open these doors. I was trying to find the doors of what the doors were. I know one of the doors is St. Peter's Basilica.
One of them is a
Uh,
prison, particular prison.
yeah, here it is. It's the papal basilicas of St. John Lateran, St. Mary Major, St. Paul outside the walls, and then the St. Peter's Basilica, and then the prison door that you're talking about. So the fact that they did five, I think, is unprecedented. Normally they only do four, but it's every 25 years. Now, frankly, I don't think there's much to do in the physical realm about these Catholic doors. Like I don't think it's gonna, usher in. It's gonna open a portal to another dimension or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. I
Right.
know it's symbolic,
That's
but
the
I also
that's the
think
issue.
I think there's a spiritual connotation to it that may be being open that we are not privy to. And I don't know if it's different than previous years, but it's happening at the same time now that we have CERN potentially opening portals to other dimensions on top of all the other crazy things going on in the world right now. It seems to me that doors are being opened, whether we know about it, talk about it, maybe being done in secret. We have no idea that it's even going on. But it seems like there's an exponential increase in the paranormal weird things going on. And that goes from everything from Bigfoot to the dog man to these plasma orbs that are flying around and and I saw a really good video on Mr. MBB 333. He had a really good video sent to him about this orb, and it's just like the weirdest looking thing. It's just hovering there in the sky. It looks plasma. It's just constantly moving and changing. And unless that's a holograph, I mean, it could be holographic. I warrant that. But this is in the middle of Arkansas, like in the middle of nowhere. Somebody filmed this. So if you're going to do a holographic thing to deceive people, you would want to put that somewhere where there's people, like where there's a massive amount of people to be able to perpetrate this deception. What do you think?
Well, you just used the word deceive and deception, and those are a couple of the big call words of the time that the world is really entering into. Not that there's not deception right now, there is, but we also know that right now is setting up, or is the stage setter for what is ultimately going to come. That the period of time, the tribulation, is going to be the biggest deception ever brought upon mankind. All right. And deception is what? What does it really mean? Something is not what it appears to be. So something appears to be one thing, but it's actually not what it appears to be. And so we've got all these technologies and weird kind of creepy things that are out there, like holographic technology. I was talking about that just briefly last night, and how there are, I mean, you can go to a Michael Jackson concert right now and see holographic Michael Jackson. You can see a holographic, Tupac. There's one of the women that they've done a holographic concert on. I can't remember who she is right now. Even world leaders. So you've got Erdogan there of Turkey had a holographic presentation that he put on in front of people, and this was years ago. Okay, so I'm getting feedback. Is that on my end, Pete?
I don't hear it.
I just heard it for a second. Okay, um, and um, and so I mean, guys, it's crazy kind of stuff, but it's not what it appears to be. It's kind of like the image of the beast. All right, the that thing is going to appear one way, but it's not what it appears to be. All right. All of these things are illusions made to deceive people, to get them to think different than what they would perhaps ordinarily think. Right. And so that's what I find is the biggest thing, is the deception that these things bring, is getting people off their guard. We see such deception right now, in fact, that people don't even know what to believe anymore. What is true, what's not true. People are being bombarded with such an overwhelming amount of information, right? It's like information overload, and for every thing that you've got over here, there's always a pushback over here. And so it's getting harder and harder for people to know what to believe. This is what I say, is keep your eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, right? This is what I say. It says in the word that these are written that you may believe. All right. So we have everything that we need right there. Know that the deception is going to grow, and it's going to become more and more just off the rails. I mean, when you talk about this whole hadron collider and everything, and this was something from a couple of years ago, that it was revving up. This was, well, now 2.5 years ago, revving up, and I quote, to unprecedented energy levels. So think about that. You've got unprecedented energy levels from the Hadron Collider. You've got, what is it, quantum computing, which is just, I mean, that thing is just growing by leaps and bounds as well. Once they can, in a cheap way, solve the problem, because right now there is a difficulty, because you have to keep it at this like sub-zero temperature, so that's something that that obviously only the ultra rich corporations and governments pretty much can do. Google and all that kind of stuff, but they're working on the technologies to be able to solve that problem. When and if they do, and I do think it's a when, then that will become something that will eventually begin to be become marketed for people. And the reason why I'm saying this is when you're looking at unprecedented energy levels, 2.5 years ago, whatever, from the Large Hadron Collider, you're looking at the advancements in AI, AGI, perhaps down the road there, and you're looking at quantum computing. Guys, it is going to just be off the rails here, I believe, within a matter of a few years. And with that, and in fact, now they've got AI, there's AI Nostradamus. Okay. AI Nostradamus. So now you got a false seer from France from 400 some odd years ago. You've got AI Jesus, and people follow this stuff. Like that's the thing. I mean, you would think, well, this is wackadoo stuff. I mean, guys, there's a guy. I think he's in prison now, but he was free forever in Russia, and he was saying that he was basically like the reincarnation, which of course we know there's no such thing, but the reincarnation or the return or whatever of Jesus Christ. That he was Jesus Christ, and the guy's got like millions of followers all over the world, and he's in Russia. I mean, it's like, don't you find that the wackier it is, the more that people are willing to believe it? It just seems strange.
Yeah, and that guy just appeared. I know who you're talking about, but I think that's why Jesus said, "Hey, unless the angels that were there in chapter one, unless Jesus comes back exactly how he left, like coming out of the sky, don't follow him." That is he's going to return in like manner. So the fact that Jesus is returning. Here's something fascinating to think about in that regards. Uh, Jesus obviously chose the pre-tribulation rapture as the mechanism of delivery for the church prior to the 70th week. I didn't create that. Darby didn't create that. Schofield didn't create that. That's just the way it's worded in the Bible. And Jesus said, in First Thessalonians 4, this is how he's going to return with a shout, trumpet. He's not coming to earth. He's only coming halfway. And then on the other side, Acts chapter 1, the angel's confirming that this Jesus is, you saw him leave. This is how he's going to return. He's going to return in like manner. He's returning right to the middle of the enemy's stronghold because Satan is called the prince of the power of the air. In Ephesians chapter 2, he's got trillions of angels at his disposal. We don't know how many that there are, but if there's, let's just say hypothetically, there's 100 trillion angels, Satan's got a third of that. So he's got 30 trillion, right, at his disposal. There's only 8 billion people alive on the planet right now. They could, I don't know, I don't want to do the math on it. I don't know how many angels that is for each individual person. You could probably put 1,000 fallen angels on each person and accomplish something. But we're getting raptured right out of the middle of Satan's stronghold, right out of the middle of his domain. Satan's not down in the smoky caverns of hell. He's in the air above us. He wants to sit above
Mhm.
us like he is, like we're cockroaches, like we're insects that he can step on whenever he wants. That's how. But Jesus is going to return in like manner for the church. That's we're meeting him in the air. And I've always thought of the rapture more of as a military processional that we meet there. We're in glorified form now. We're going to be paraded in front of our enemies, and they're not going to be able to do anything about it. In fact, then that's going to start the groundwork for Daniel 9:27 to kick off, presumably immediately after or shortly thereafter, or maybe after a little gap in time. But I don't know. I find that fascinating that we're also seeing all these UFOs, these UAPs, the drones, the guy in the Tesla truck in Trump's tower was talking about gravitic propulsion systems. That means that these systems don't need any kind of fuel. There's no intake or exhaust for these machines, the drones, etc. But we're also seeing these other things that are not government. They are not even from this world, it looks like, because they're transmedium platforms. They can go from space to the air to the sea and never slow down. They just go from one environment to the other and never change speed. They're traveling at speeds underwater that, frankly, I don't even think we have torpedoes that go that fast or missiles or anything. So they're defying laws of physics.
Totally.
At the same time, we're seeing an increase in like Bigfoot sightings, the missing 411, all these people that go missing in national parks around the world, uh, the orbs, the lights, these balls of light, plasma, whatever they are. You have a increase in the number of hauntings, and I mean by hauntings, I mean places that are infested with whatever spiritual forces. In my hotel room in Kentucky, I had perfect example of that. The video that I had posted on that,
Right.
and I think that they're being increased because doors are being opened, and we're also at the cusp of the Tower of Babel type of situation with CERN, trying to tap into other dimensions. We know there's a portal that's opened up in Revelation 9, and that unleashes, that's probably like the gate of hell or whatever, that unleashes the demonic locusts that come out of there. So it seems like we're watching all these things on this side of everything, and we're watching it take place, and it seems very disparate and unconnected. But we, as as students of the Bible, students of prophecy, we can see how all these things begin to start connecting together, because I can look at a guy like Elon Musk or Trump and say, well, I don't think Trump's the Antichrist, but I'm not too sure about Elon Musk because he's got his fingers in three different kinds of technology that we see in Revelation 11 and Revelation 13. So if I'm not saying that Musk is the Antichrist. I'm saying that he's building the infrastructure for him if he's not him himself. So that's the only
Right.
reason I bring up Bigfoot and
I,
all that. I don't think they're animals. I don't think they're biological cryptids or whatever. I think these are demonic forces, beings that or they're a branch. If you think about the hierarchies of in Ephesians 6:12 about the principalities, powers, etc. I think that those things are at the bottom of the hierarchy, and they can appear and disappear at will, and they're used for deception. They're used for there's the ancient Indians and whoever used to worship them as demigods, etc. They're leftovers from that, but because we give it attention and we focus on, and I don't mean we, you and I, but like just it's the popularity of these things have built up so much. It's kind of like a tulpa, in Hebrew tradition or in culture, not Judaism, but this outside of that. A tulpa was like this thing that you could bring into being just by thinking about it, right? So you have millions of people thinking about monsters, witches, pagan gods, Thor, all of that stuff, and it's like we're giving that power to manifest in our day and age in ways that they hadn't for centuries and centuries and centuries. So I feel like we're getting back into that realm right at the same time that technology is exponentially going into sci-fi areas, with quantum technology, quantum
mhm.
AI. We have quantum AI right now. That's a relatively new development. This for 2024 was a new development. My understanding was it's new, and the whole thing with Google Willow, the that AI supercomputer, quantum computer that they think can open portals to other dimensions because it's solving problems faster than it would take a supercomputer. It would take longer for that supercomputer to answer that question than is the age of the universe according to them. So they think the universe is 14 billion years old. And I say they, I mean like the establishment, science,
Right. Right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, those kind of the experts out there are saying the universe is about 14 billion. This Google answered this question that it was going to take a supercomputer, the world's fastest supercomputer, like a septillion years to answer, which is way longer than the age of the universe. So now they're thinking, okay, if it's that powerful, maybe it can go in other directions and create, give us the theoretical math to be able to create a wormhole or to create a portal to another dimension. So we're definitely, I think we're very Tower of Babel time period right now, where this
Totally.
is where God is going to um, interact again personally in a very profound way with the rapture of the church.
Yeah, it's really interesting because when you go back in thousands of years ago, uh, pretty much, and you look at like Greek mythology. and Egyptian mythology, you look at Roman mythology. Guys, how is it that you have, and others, by the way, how is it that you have all of these mythologies or mythological um, um, systems of belief, if you would, and it's not just from one society or a couple of societies. I mean, it's all around there, guys, right? How do you have all of that? Well, because I believe that what they were seeing and experiencing were these various demigods, because that's what Greek mythology and Egyptian and all of those are. They're these demigods, you know. And I think it's really interesting because when you make those comparisons to Genesis chapter 6 and other areas in the Word, there, all right, you want to talk about Goliath? Okay, would be a great, I think, a fantastic example. Goliath, his brothers, all of that when they were going into the land of Canaan would be another, right? Remember, there's giants in the land. They didn't mean that they saw some tall basketball players. They weren't threatened by the NBA. Okay, they recognized. Listen, there's something freaky going on here, and they were. I mean, it mess with them, right? And it was only what Joshua and Caleb that were like, okay, yeah, we see what's going on here, but we're trusting in God. I had talked on my program that I put. It's Through the Lens that I put on Hope for Our Times every couple of weeks. I got another one coming out about UFOs in the Vatican and the U.S. government. That's going to be coming out this Friday, I think, on Hope for Our Times, and it's under Through the Lens. It'll be episode 21. But like I've talked about in the past, for example, Green Man. I don't know if you've ever heard of Green Man. So that's another one of those kinds of things. Like I was talking about a few minutes ago, you'll find Green Man is talked about more popular in your kind of Nordic kind of cultures and that kind of stuff. And there's all of this talk, guys. I believe there's something to it. Chuck Missler would talk about these kinds of things as well. I never heard him talk about Green Man, but about um, the different mythologies and everything. Guys, it's really really interesting. Then you get into the Anunnaki and the Nephilim and the all of those guys. Absolutely fascinating stuff. There's a lot of things that are going on that they're not telling us that I believe that they clearly know about. And my question is when once the church is gone, all right, forget Elvis leaving the building, the church has left the earth, right? Once we're out of here, once we're gone, uh, listen, the Antichrist and all his little croonies that follow along with them, they've got to come up with some kind of spin on this. All right. They got to come up with some kind of spin. They can't say, well, those were the good guys and God took them, because then no one's going to believe them. Right. So they've got to come up with some kind of spin. And, we can speculate or pontificate or whatever all day long on that. But I think a pretty doggone good narrative may well be the whole UFO alien approach that they may take on that, because isn't it rather interesting that we've got the Pentagon talking about this? I talk about that uh, this coming Friday, but the Pentagon talking about this, we've got Congress talking about this, we got the military in general talking about it, and you had mentioned, okay, some of these things that these UFOs or UAPs, now they're calling them, are doing. But there is nothing that we know of. Right. I mean, it breaks the laws of thermodynamics. You can't go at those kind of speeds and make, 90-degree angle turns at those kinds of speeds. You can't do that. There's nothing that I know of. I don't think there's anything that you know of, Pete, and correct me if I'm wrong, that can do that. And when we've got these things that are being released from military videos, guys, the military videos. I mean, it's crazy. And they're air and they're sea capable. And again, just as you had mentioned, the graphitic um, propulsion system there. I mean, it's really interesting because this is one of the things that some of these guys in our military have been eyewitnesses to. what's the propulsion system for these things? I mean, it's just it's crazy. It's crazy. So there's something going on. That's all I know. There's something going on, and I believe that the enemy ultimately, just my opinion or one of my takes on it, why would he not use it to his advantage at that opportune time of the church being gone? I think it's a very possible avenue.
Yeah, I Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer just came out. I was looking it up. Excuse the dogs in the background. He's saying uh,
Or let the dogs out.
it's too cold outside. They don't want to go outside. UFO expert Dr. Stephen Greer has suggested these global light displays are part of a staged operation designed to trick the public into believing an alien invasion is imminent. Speaking to Newsmax's Rob Finnerty, Dr. Greer predicted that the situation will escalate in the next 30 days or so. He believes that the supposed alien invasion is a diversion tactic to hide the truth about extraterrestrial encounters. Okay, he's saying something within the next 30 days, so he's making a pretty bold claim, and I guess we'll see if that pans out. But if here's where I think there is some kind of weight to what he's saying. I've said all along about the drones. I said this is multifaceted. I said it seems like there's some kind of technology, that secret technology the government has, but there's also this other stuff that's happening that we can't explain, that defies the laws of physics, etc. So two different things right there. The drone thing, especially with this guy in Las Vegas at the Trump hotel blowing himself up at the Tesla truck. He mentioned gravitic propulsion. So Greer talked about anti-gravity technology. I think we have anti-gravity technology. I think some of these drones that we're seeing out there is using that technology and they're testing it. I don't think that it's somebody else had mentioned. Oh yeah, that guy in the Cybertruck. He had mentioned that the Chinese have this too, and that they're launching into the United States. I don't know how true that is. I think if a foreign actor were doing something to that effect, I think we would have had to respond to a lot earlier than what we have. I say that also knowing that we allowed a Chinese weather balloon, to travel across the United States. So
Yeah, nothing to see
yeah,
here, right? No, no.
yeah. So I
Yeah,
think about it this way though. If I think Stephen Greer may be right, if the deep state is in possession of this extraterrestrial technology that we've had since, say, Roswell, going back to 47. If we've had this whole time and we've been trying to militarize it or weaponize it, and now we've gotten to the point because technology is caught up with the ability to manipulate these machines. If we're at that point now where we are using them and testing them out over continental US, and they don't want Trump to come in because Trump is a threat to them, the deep state, the swamp, all of that. Um, I could see how something will manifest between now and inauguration day that may try to delay, and it would have to be something of a earth shaking. Uh, I mean, it would have to be something of such a substantial newsworthy worthiness that it would dominate the headlines in the news for every day, all day. And I'm trying to think back to maybe like George Floyd riots and stuff, where that was getting coverage from all the news channels all the time. I mean, they covered the Trump assassination attempt. They covered that for about 2 or 3 days, and then it was off. It was off the news. And we know more about the guy in the Tesla truck than we know about the guy that almost assassinated Trump, which is sad. Um,
yeah. Rather, isn't that
if,
isn't that
if
rather interesting? And a lot of inconsistencies, by the way. And I do mean a lot of inconsistencies with the whole thing that took place here in Las Vegas last week. It's really weird. I personally believe that the things that are going on, I'm more concerned about what's going on the inside than what's coming from the outside to our country. I think the state of affairs within the United States is really bad. The deep state is I mean, it's super swampy out there, And I personally don't believe that Donald Trump is going to be able to deal with it. I really don't. It's too deep. It's too entrenched. That anybody with 4 years, shall he survive 4 years in office? Um, 4 years is not going to be able to deal with it, no more than the previous 4 years dealt with it. Although I think he's a little wiser this time around, because he did have some people in his last administration that were deep state. He didn't realize it, you know.
Yeah.
But see, that's part of the problem, though. He's not going to have the opportunity to deal with it. Um, I just don't see it. And when we look in at the time that we're in, the direction that things are going, I just don't see it. By the way, when you talk about Roswell, when you talk about this Air Force officer David Grush, if I'm saying his last
Rush.
name right, yeah, and statements that he's made that we have quote biologics, and he means non-human biologics and that kind of stuff. Guys, I do want to make it clear that we do not believe in UFOs um, as the world would talk about UFOs, or we don't believe in ET or aliens as the world talks about these things. What we believe that we are seeing. Okay, I'm going to word it to you this way. What we believe that we are seeing is demonic activity. That's what we're talking about here from this perspective. I mean, look. I mean, it says in Matthew 24, false Christ, false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders. Now, let's understand that as that's written like that, false Christ, that's plural, false prophets, that's plural. It's not even speaking about the false prophet or the antichrist. It's talking about, in a more general sense, that they are going to rise and show what? Great signs and wonders. And what is the purpose of that? It goes back to what I said about 15 minutes ago: to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Okay, so we'll see that then. We see Second Thessalonians 2:9, the coming of the lawless one is according to the working of Satan with all power, signs, and lying wonders. All right. So again, it's a time of great deception. We've got a lot of deception now. That deception is going to continue to grow. Just don't fall for the lie.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. That portion of scripture from the Olivet Discourse talking about that there will be great deception, even if possible, the elect would be deceived. We can't be deceived because we are not going to be here. So let's just say Stephen
Right.
Greer is right. There's something coming in the next 30 days. I don't think Stephen Greer's. In fact, I know he's not a Christian. He's tapping into some. You said it right too. They'll call them aliens. They'll call them all Sasquatch, Bigfoot. I think they're demonic activity. All of that's demonic. I will say I will make an exception for the biologics that we have recovered. I think Timothy Alvarino and Ellie Marzulli would say that those the little gray men or whatever, those could be things that these fallen angels created, and not created out of thin air ex nihilo, but created with existing DNA,
Right.
etc.
They have to use existing material.
Yeah, yeah, they
but
can't
but
create
but
ex nihilo.
no, but to manipulate existing material. By the way, no, no, me and Jeremy are not the same guy. Somebody had just put on theirs. I know that at our family bank, they think that me, Jeremy, who's my youngest son, Jordan, who's my oldest son, all of the bank tellers get all three of us confused all the time. So that's pretty funny. It made me laugh. But but yeah, but they can't just make things or create things out of thin air. But we see again, when we're talking about chimeras, when we're talking about organoid intelligence, artificial intelligence, all of these kinds of things, they're taking things that are there and they are manipulating them. I mean, guys, go back to Genesis 6. What is it, verse 4? Right? We see a manipulation of what is already there. It's a demonic, a very evil fallen angel manipulation of what's already there.
Yeah,
So
Matthew
I
24.
I think it's important that we and just as you're doing, I'm doing, it's important that we make those distinctions, you know. So yeah.
Matthew 24, 23 through 24, it says, Then if anyone says to you, Look, there, here is the Christ, or there, do not believe it. For false Christ and false prophets will rise
Right.
and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. So here, I think even for years, I just assumed this was always speaking about religious leaders. I don't think that it's simply religious leaders. If somebody shows up, gray alien lands on the White House lawn, etc., and they say, "Hey, we're from the planet, I don't even know,
Zulu. Zulu.
Zulu, and we planted you guys here. We're your creators. We this whole alien seed are seeding the universe with life, and then we came back and we're coming back to check on you guys because things are getting out of hand. You elected this blonde Trump guy, and so we have to come back and save the democracy or whatever they say. I think that if that's it seems like we're getting close to that because so many unprecedented things are now happening over and over and over. We keep saying unprecedented, and after a while, I think that word loses its meaning after you've said it a bunch of times, even if it's warranted. So we're at that point now where there's nothing left to really shock us except for the magical and the supernatural. That's really the only thing left that's shocking people these days. Even not even all of the supernatural stuff. I mean, people are still going about their daily business, even though there's stuff flying in the sky. We have no idea what it is. Um, and no answers are forthcoming from the government because they've got a lid on a certain section of that. But I feel like we're getting close to that point where I would expect 2025 to be more crazy than 2024, which was crazier than 2023, and so on and so forth. So I think things are
I,
going to only ramp up this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if the UFO, UAP, Bigfoot, Dogman, all that stuff, if that just keeps exponentially increasing and gaining ground, and we start to see like I say the veil between the spiritual domain and the physical domain that starts to get thin. I don't know if it's getting thinner or that people are actively trying to summon things and they're trying to open portals we only know about what's happening on the news, right? We only know what's happening around the world because we see it on the news. But I guarantee you, man, there are groups out there. I don't mean you're run of the mill Satanist that wears all black and looks like goth or whatever. I'm talking about people in high positions, people that are Luciferian to the core, who may be working hand in glove with actual fallen angels that are manifesting into human form. Because we know that angels can manifest into human form. So if a holy angel can manifest, I'm assuming that unholy can still manifest. They still have that capability. And if that's true, then we've got people actively working with the demonic realm in a very physical way that even though they can't see into the future, they were there. They were there when Christ was crucified. They know exactly what year it was. There's no debate in their mind. They know exactly what year Christ was born. They know we're coming up on the anniversary of his 2000th anniversary of his death, burial, and resurrection. And they also know that from Jesus' first coming back 2,000 years back was to Abraham, and then 2,000 years back from that was to Adam. So I think they are smart enough to recognize the pattern that's happening here. And I was watching Charles Lawson, I don't know, a sermon that he did a while back, but he made mention of something that I hadn't thought about before. We talked about CERN earlier, but CERN is that 17-mile loop that's underground, and then you've got the actual facilities, the administration, the rest of the buildings and stuff on the surface. And in front of that building, you have that dancing statue of Shiva, right? The god or goddess of destruction in Hinduism.
mhm.
That thing is sitting right in the middle of that circle. That false god is sitting right in the middle of that circle, and I hadn't thought about it that way before. But we also know there's L.A. Marzulli's done a lot of stuff with the pagan roots of that area and the god Cernunnos or whatever. all of that stuff, and we saw the opening ceremonies and all the pagan stuff that's associated with CERN. So I'm not surprised if there are people that are actively working to bring the demonic. They don't think of them as demonic. They're thinking of them as like aliens or Anunnaki or whatever you want to call them. But they're deceiving these people. That's what they are. They are all bent on deception all the time, and it seems like the closer we get to seeing these things manifest in reality, the closer we are to the rapture because of that passage in Matthew 23:24. And I know that the Olivet Discourse isn't talking necessarily about the church. It's not talking about the rapture. I think there is some blending of things happening right there with the general description of like wars and rumors of war and how much will we see of that before, you know what I mean? Like there's I like to think that the Daniel 9:27, 24 through 27, the 70 weeks prophecy is the thesis when it comes to like the very last days. The Olivet Discourse is the outline, and then the book of Revelation, you know, particularly from chapter 6 onward, is the detailed narrative. It's that outline filled out with with a lot more detail on it, right? So the
Right.
Olivet Discourse gives us an outline, a skeleton outline of events to coming, and in that outline that you have, there has to be an ending of the church age and there has to be a beginning of the 70th week. So I think we're in that
Well,
the ankles on the statue of Daniel, the Nebuchadnezzar statue, we're somewhere in the ankles, you know, if Tyler,
right.
my buddy Tyler would say.
Right. Well, when we look at the Olivet Discourse, you know, and we're looking in you know, Luke 21 and Matthew 24, 25, Mark 13. When we're looking at that, we have to understand, and this is where dispensationalism is so important, guys, because if you don't understand dispensationalism, you are not going to understand what God is doing on his prophetic time clock and throughout the ages. It's just going to become very mushy. It's going to become very confusing because when you're reading in the Olivet Discourse, you got to understand that it is Israel centric. All right. It is
Mhm.
totally Israel centric. And I've been saying this for a while because I think this might help that for people, for believers to understand that the tribulation, the main focus of the tribulation is Israel. It's the time of Jacob's trouble. All right, go back again. You had mentioned Daniel chapter 9, but it's the time of Jacob's trouble. The whole world is involved in the time of Jacob's trouble. The whole world is affected by the time of Jacob's trouble. But the main focus there is Israel. We've got to understand it from that standpoint and the dispensations of time and all of that. And we've got to understand that prophecy is pattern. All right. There are patterns that we see to these things in the word. And I mean, and God just puts his little interesting little nuggets for us to just go on our little treasure hunts that we get to find, you know, because like when I was talking yesterday on Sunday morning in our Sunday morning services, what was it? Matthew, no, not Matthew. I'm sorry, Mark, chapter 14, and we covered the first 11 verses of that very long chapter. In verses 10 and 11, there you see where it's talking about Judas Iscariot, you know, and how what we find there was profound betrayal compared to the woman with the oil of spikenard with the alabaster jar that had profound love. And you see the dichotomy between the two, and both were involving money, both were involving the death of Jesus. It's really interesting, you know, how you find that in the Word, and how Jesus was betrayed for 30 pieces of silver and not 50 pieces of silver, which is really interesting because that goes back to the book of Leviticus and into Zechariah, the prophecy in Zechariah. Anyhow, I'm not going to talk about all that here and now. You can check it out from yesterday's message there that we've got on YouTube and Rumble and all that stuff. But again, we just see some really interesting things there that God puts in his word. And the deeper we look into these things, the better of an understanding we begin to have of all of them. I mean, we see one of the things that we see is we see the spiritually demonic merging with the physical realm. this again, this goes back. We see that all the way back in Genesis. We see it, pretty much all the way through. There is this trying to merge of these things together. And by the way, remember, I forget how many years ago it was now. Maybe you can remind me, Pete. I don't know, 8 years ago, maybe if I'm guessing, was before the global sickness thing. The whole Goddard tunnel and that whole demonic ceremony, and you got all these different movers and shakers and world leaders there and everything. And I mean, that thing was like, that whole ceremony was literally out of the pit of hell. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, what are they trying to open up? Now we can argue all day and night. Are they going to open up these, different portholes and dimensions and these kinds of things? Yeah, I don't know. All right, but all I can say is this: the fact that there is the desire from your intel community, your scientific community, and your governmental community, right, to try and open up things and involve ourselves with things that we shouldn't be involving ourselves with, tells me this. This is what it tells me for sure, that they will be willing to receive the final Antichrist, the final false prophet, right? The mark of the beast, all of these things, the image of the beast. They're going to fall for these things, hook, line, and sinker, because the desire is this um, this new spirituality. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's a blending. Like you said, it's different from the other beasts because there is nothing like it in history that can compare to what's about to come. It is this blending of this technology. And I got to think too that if you go back to the book of Enoch, and I hold the book, the one Enoch, not the other two, but I hold the book of one Enoch even loosely. I don't I don't depend on it a lot for a lot of things. But my point with the book of Enoch mentioning this is that in the book of Enoch there was I'm trying to think about what it was. The angels, the fallen angels. Like I was trying to think of the guy's name, Aziel or whatever. All the 200 angels, but they were teaching humans how to craft metal, to make weapons, how to make uh, perfumes and makeup to seduce men. Like they were doing all these things, that they were advancing mankind exponentially at that time, teaching them things that we shouldn't know or shouldn't, you know, have learned just yet, or learned, at all, or should have learned by our own development, not having angels giving us this stuff. I feel like the quantum systems, the quantum theory, all that is also part of that. I'm not calling quantum theory demonic or whatever. I'm just saying whoever first started delving in this and opening this Pandora's box, I think they were influenced to some degree by these fallen angels that are showing them how to do things and whispering in their ear and kind of showing, oh
Mhm,
no, it's over here, look over here.
mhm.
And they think they're the ones discovering it. But when we open the quantum realm, I feel like that is the perfect blending of technology with the supernatural, because quantum, what was it? Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Everybody that's dealt with quantum understands that it works. They just don't understand how it works.
How
We
it
don't understand
works. Right.
why it works. But I think that is the perfect blending of the technology that's going to be required to run the kingdom of the beast, in terms of the mark, the images, total surveillance society, total control. You can see technologies today that are being developed that I think could be the ones that are used then. Starlink, Peter Thiel's done Palantir. Uh, you have Neuralink, um, XAI. X is a platform in and of itself. I mean, Musk has positioned himself right next to the most powerful man in the universe or the world. At the same time, he is the most powerful, wealthy technocrat that
Tech.
there is, and he's involved in tunneling under, developing tunneling systems underneath cities, sending rockets that are reusable rockets, Neuralink, SpaceLink, XAI. I mean, that dude's all over the place. I don't know how he has time to function, and he has like 15 kids or something. Like he just keeps having kids because he's convinced that the world's depopulating, or depopulation is the world's biggest problem. So you mentioned earlier something about Lovelock Caves. What was that in your text? What was that? That was the giant, the Nephilim that was they supposedly killed in the cave there.
Yeah, that's there in here in Nevada, years ago, and you've got the records of that. You've got the uh, what's being reported out there from a few in the U.S. military, the Kandahar Giant, that kind of stuff. L.A. Marzulli talks about these things too. I think back in the day when he was alive, Missler, I believe, talked about these things. Guys, again, just a lot of strange stuff. Even Catalina Island, I had gone with my cousin when I lived in Cali, and we took some kind of a tour boat, whatever that was out there. We were like, hey, let's take a tour boat to Catalina Island for the day, and which, by the way, was kind of crazy because here we are, we're like 17 years old, and we're on this tour boat. Well, it was great when we went out. When we came back, and you can see the California coastline, from there, Catalina Island, and we came back in the storm. I felt like we were on the boat, like with Gilligan and the skipper, and that thing was tossed to and fro, and like people are ready to like start vomiting, off the side of the boat and everything. And we're a couple of crazy teenagers. We're like, yeah, right on. This is cool, like we're about ready to lose our lives. And but there at Catalina Island, is where some of these Nephilim skulls have been discovered as well. And it's really interesting how, things get discovered, and then governmental authorities get a hold of these things and they just go missing. It's just,
Yeah.
it's like how all these things go missing. But I think that part of that, I think that part of that is that, again, this is just my take on it, that the enemy is just letting out little bits of information just to kind of get people talking, get people interested. And then because he knows, I mean, the enemy knows the word of God very well. Okay. Scripture says that the demons believe and shudder. So I call that demonic belief. That's not saving faith. There's a difference between demonic belief and saving faith. So they don't have saving faith, they have demonic belief. Listen, these demonic entities, they've been around for a long, long time. Satan's been around for a long, long time. He knows the word very well. That's how he's able to twist it so well. All right. And they know what's written in the word, that there is going to be a rapture of the church, right? So he knows that things are going to happen. I believe that he is preparing his narrative for what is going to be discussed, to be able to bring about the great deception that we talked about earlier, all right, upon the ones that are left, that are going to be very very vulnerable. And I believe it's at that time that not that we, but that those that are left behind may see this big dump, if you would, of information coming out. Who's the one guy that had dumped all this kind of governmental information, is in hiding right now? There's actually two of them. Uh,
Snowden and
Snowden is
Assange, Julian
one.
Assange.
Who's the other one?
Julian Assange, I think was
Yeah, the son, Snowden, and I think there's even a third one I'm thinking of right
oh
now. Anyhow,
the transvestite one, the transgender one.
I can't think of the name. Oh well, so anyhow,
Yeah.
but I believe that once we're gone, that there very likely may be that's when all the stuff is going to be dumped out there. And I think that the enemy is just going to use it to his advantage. We know that the Antichrist is going to be satanically possessed. I mean, it's going to be crazy. We know at some point the abyss is going to open up, right? I mean, it's going to be demonic on steroids at that time. So I think that what the little bits of information that have been coming out for some years right now, I think that it's all going to really come out at that time, the twisted version of these things, you know.
I just had an epiphany, and if you talking about Nephilim and all that stuff, um, I was thinking because I always look at whatever I'm looking at, and I'm going to ask the question why, why is this the way it is, why is it doing it, etc. And I got to thinking, why would there be if Bigfoot, Yetis, Green Man, Sasquatch, Dogman, all the different cryptid stuff that's El Chupacabra, the Mothman, etc. What purpose do they serve if they're demonic? Aside from deception, aside from, I mean, because yeah, pop culture, everybody's heard of Bigfoot, but I would say probably only about 1% or 2% of the population actually like would consider themselves like not hobbyists, but like people that's what they focus on. Like they go to the meetings, they go on these excursions to go hunt for them, etc. But why would they exist? And I think why we're seeing the uptick in paranormal, why we're seeing the uptick in places that are rural, country rural areas. Not just that, but it's driving. I think it's meant to drive people away from unpopulated areas and back into grouping us together into mass groups, into like urban centers, or does that make sense?
Well, I think what you're asking, correct me, is why is there this merging of these things? Is that what you're asking?
No, why do they exist? Why is there a Bigfoot? Why are there even stories? Why is that something I know about in 2025? Or why is that something why
Because
are UFOs appearing in the sky? All the stuff
because
that's unexplained.
man is interested in the paranormal.
I get
Man is interested. I mean, let's go back when I was young, maybe when you were young, with Dungeons and Dragons, with Ouija board. Well, Ouija board still, I guess kind of popular now, but Dungeons and Dragons and Ouija boards and all these kinds of things. Why is it that there is such an attraction to the spiritual, right? There's such an attraction to the paranormal, right? Well, because we're sinful people, right? All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, and so man, deep down inside, man. I believe believes that there is something more. I mean, even I did before I came to Jesus, and I was a hot mess. But I mean, I believe that there was something more, and I was interested in new age stuff and like I had said last night, Edward Casey and Gene Dixon and Nostradamus, big time Nostradamus, and all of those kinds of things. And so I was searching. I was interested in what's going on and what am I hearing about all these things. And so I
yeah.
think I don't know. That's just my opinion that man is into from if we look at it from man's perspective. I don't know if you're talking about it from man's perspective or from the adversary's perspective, but from man's perspective, man is interested in spiritual things, but unfortunately does not tends not to look to God for them. From the adversary's perspective, he is manipulating that and utilizing that very thing, knowing that man wants to know and gets intrigued and curious. I mean, why is it that horror films are so popular? Why is it that Guardians of the Universe or Star Wars series, and I'm missing the Marvel, all the Marvel stuff and everything. I mean, guys, for example, you get into Marvel comics and DC comics and the Marvel movies and all those kinds of things. I mean, it's kind of on the whole thing of like what we were talking about earlier, demigods. All right.
Yeah.
In fact, Thor. What is Thor? Thor is a demigod. All right. And so there's an interest even in the comics, in the Avengers movies, the all of these things. There's something very intriguing about all of that. And the adversary knows it, and the adversary wants to play on that. And I
Yeah.
believe he tries to manipulate it. But I don't know. That's what I said.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree. From man's perspective, that's man is a hybrid creature. We're kind of half spiritual, half physical, right? We have a soul. We know that we have a spiritual component to us that attracts us to these kinds of things, right? So I get that from man's perspective, and I also get from Satan's perspective that he's going to exploit that fascination. But I don't think it's purely exploiting for the sake of exploiting. I think there's more pragmatic reason that may develop that hasn't developed yet, but it's in the process of developing now. And I got to thinking about it, not my epiphany this morning, but like I've got to thinking about it through various things I've written on. Um, but you mentioned Nephilim earlier. So when the Israelites were going to go into the promised land and they sent the 12 spies over, and Joshua Caleb came back with a good report, and the other 10 said, nope, we can't do it. These guys are gigantic, they're going to eat us, etc. Well, we know that eventually the Israelites do move in. They begin to conquer the land of Israel, and they're driving those giants out, killing them or driving them out. And we know from historical archaeological evidences, etc., that there was a lot of giant activity or Nephilim activity in Malta, in Cyprus, and other parts of Europe, and then in the United States. Eventually, they make it to the United States. So my thought is that they began to go over there for safe haven and wait their time to do whatever it is that they're going to do. But then the Indians, the Native Americans, begin showing up, and eventually there's clashes there, and the Native Americans don't like them because they're cannibals. And anyway, so the Native Americans take care of that problem before the European settlers come over, right? And all we have
Mhm.
left is like the bones, etc., the caves and stuff. Now,
Right.
I say all that because I don't think Satan is I think when Satan does things, it is there's probably like 10 echelons to what he's trying to do, right? So yeah, there was an exploitation process to this, but if you make the woods, the countrysides, the uh, less populated areas, if you make them uninhabitable, people will not live there. They'll be forced, like we're being channelized and moved and driven into urban areas because it's easier to control an urban population than it is when people are spread out all over the planet. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I'm not saying this is not a hill I'm going to die on. This is just something I'm thinking out loud about that these we're seeing the uptick. We're not seeing these things decrease. There is an uptick in these kinds of sightings. And I don't mean just Bigfoot, Dogman. I mean, the people are saying this is like a straight up werewolf looking thing. And I sent you that video. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of it's mostly just eyewitness testimonies and whether you take their testimonies at face value or not. Some of them I do believe that they'll talk to a friend, hey, my friend was there when I was 10 years old and I told him this, what happened to me. And they'll go corroborate that with a friend. And like it's like, yeah, he told me about that, however many years ago we were. Anyway, all that to say, I've seen a uptick in the number of places that are haunted, that are people will move there thinking they're going to get a good deal on a house, and they live in the house for 2 months, and they're like, hey, we can't stay here. This place is like poltergeist central or whatever. Like it's just you hear about these stories. You don't hear about them all the time. They're online now because we have YouTube and things like that. But I mean, if my hotel room in Kentucky, straight up demonic activity going on in there. If I weren't a Christian, I would be terrified and I would want to change rooms. You know what I mean? But I'm a Christian. I know that I can plead the blood of Christ in there and problem solved. At least temporarily, though those things will stay away until I'm gone. But like, if there's got to be a more pragmatic reason for why Satan is using this, because if it's purely just bent on deception, I'm sure there are a lot of other ways that he could do this, but to me, there's got to be more of a reason why he's doing it. And I think I keep coming back to this idea of being channelized, being put in these 15-minute cities. That's where they want to put us in already.
Mhm.
But how do you get people? How do you motivate people to move away from the country when you have a 100-acre ranch in the country and stuff? You make it like you make the forest someplace you don't want to go and you don't ever want to be there because you go outside and you feel like you're being watched and then you feel like you're being hunted and the next thing you know you're hearing things and people move. There was a lot of people that were living in the LBL, the land between the lakes area, and people just won't go there anymore because of all the crazy stuff. And that's not just there; it's all over the U.S. It seems like there's more and more of these places. I don't know if that's because America is becoming, as a nation, becoming less Judeo-Christian in our ethics, morality, worldview, etc., and becoming more open to paganism. We're more open as a society now to accepting all these different religious systems that have worship false gods, and so now that's all kind of manifesting here. It's like the United States has become this giant magnet for these things. And so how does Satan use that? He uses that to drive people to different places and to get them out to set up strongholds. I know if I lived out in the country and my backyard faced the woods and I'm hearing things that are not natural and I'm seeing things that are not natural, I can't prove it. All I have is a grainy photo or crappy video, but eventually that person's going to move because they're like, I'm just tired of, I can't even enjoy the woods anymore because of the craziness. And that seems like that's happening all over the place. And I watch these channels, I look at this stuff, not because I'm fascinated by it, because I'm seeing this as a sign of the times of the manifestation of the supernatural paranormal is becoming less and less fringe. It's becoming more and more mainstream, that this stuff is bubbling up to the surface now. And that tells me we're that much closer to the rapture of the church, because
Right.
just like I said in Matthew 23-24, that we can't be deceived because we're not going to be here. Now, I grant you that may be talking specifically about the elect Jews in that particular passage, because that's more focused from Israel's perspective than it is from the churches. But um, if
Right.
there's the crossover, right, the blending, we're in that time. It seems like we're in the time now, just like in the first century, where you had the crucifixion in 33, and then you had another 37 years until the temple was destroyed. But there was a time period where Israel existed as a nation, and there was some crossover with the church, that the church was just
Mhm.
beginning, right? So Israel became a nation back in 48. We are now, I think, at the tail end of that blending hybrid period now. And that's why we're beginning to see a lot of this supernatural stuff beginning to manifest in all number of
100%.
ways: UFOs, plasma, Bigfoot, you know, things in the ocean that we don't understand. I mean,
Whether or
this is
not
nuts.
whether or not those things are real or not. See, guys, this is the point that I want to make on this, is that whether any of those things are real or not, it still accomplishes the same purpose for an unbeliever, and that purpose is deception. Okay. See what see when something is perceived to be real, all right, um, whether or not it's real, it becomes real in the eye of the beholder. It becomes real in the mind of the beholder, even if it's not real. So someone who's dealing with a degree of psychosis, all right, schizophrenia, psychosis, whatever, all right, or someone who is on some, grip on some shrooms that they're on, all right, they are perceiving something different than what the actual reality is. All right. But it still accomplishes the same purpose, right? So you can have someone tripping on some shrooms, or what was it years ago when they were, the whole zombie thing over
Peyote.
the bath
Oh,
salt things, I think it was, or remember
yeah,
it was some
yeah.
of the, yeah, and they're like zombie stuff, and man, that was really really crazy, right? So they're like in some altered world, mentally, and there's going to be people in this altered world kind of spiritually, if you would, and the enemy is there is an uptick of activity because the enemy knows that the time is near. You had mentioned 1948, right? We see things. Listen, right now things are moving closer and closer with Israel. I had put up a graph last night. I had put up a graph last night, and and went through some of the things that we've seen from, what was it, 2013 to 2024, with activity, with Jews going onto Temple Mount. In fact, let me see. I'm going to look at it again, right here. And I mean, guys, it was pretty crazy how that activity has grown from 8,000 Jews ascending Temple Mount in 2013. Let's see, 2018, 30, roughly 35, 36,000 to now 2024, 58,000. And we have all the years in between. And there was just a couple of years that it was a little lower. One of them was when the global sickness broke out, that kind of thing. But you see this major uptick from 8,000 to 58,000, right? Because even the Jews who are still, some of them looking for the Messiah, some of them not looking for the Messiah, but very few of them actually believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Okay, they are becoming more and more Temple Mount centric, looking for the rebuilding of the temple, which we know is coming. All right. And more of that activity from 8,000 to 58,000 in 11 years. That is dramatic increase. And so the enemy knows that. Right? The enemy sees that. The enemy sees that the Temple Institute has made the crown of the high priest, the linen ephod, that the Kohanim are being trained for temple sacrifices. He sees these things. He knows these things. All right. And so he knows his time is near. What do we see in the word? It's going to be like the time of Noah, right? All right. So, and what did we see at the time of Noah? Well, guys, that's Genesis chapter 6. And let's remember that here in Genesis chapter 6, well, hey, we see in chapter 2 that the sons, or verse 2, I'm sorry, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were beautiful and that they took wives to themselves, and of all whom they chose, right? We see that in verse 4 there were giants on the earth in those days and also afterwards. And what does it say? When the sons of God came into the daughters of men, that means sexually. Okay. That means sexually came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. And the whole context and the whole setup, the whole structure of these verses shows that there's another party. There's a third party. You know, there's men, there's women, then there's something else here that's involved here. And then you look at this. Listen, verse 5. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intent of the thought of his heart was only evil continually. Right? But Noah, look at verse 8. Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And in verse 9, this is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God. He wasn't a perfect man in that he was sinless. We know that because scripture says all have sinned, right? Even Mary, the Catholic Church makes her out to be this co-redemptrix, which she's not. Jesus is the only redeemer. All right, so that's false teaching right there. Makes Mary out. Roman Catholic Church makes Mary out to be sinless, but she said that she acknowledged that God, her Savior, but only sinners need a Savior. All right. So, but as well with Noah, we know that Noah isn't sinless. What does it mean in perfect in his generations? Well, we also know that he was in a body that was decaying from sin, so he wasn't physically perfect, right? So it wasn't that. We know that he was a sinner. We know that it wasn't that. What is it talking about? Well, that word their generations there speaks of his genetics. In other words, genetically, his line there, there was a genetic purity right there that had not been infiltrated, right? Because Noah believed in the Lord, in God. His genetics were not infiltrated or infected, or probably infected isn't the best word, maybe infiltrated would be better, with Nephilim, fallen, let's say fallen angel stuff. Let's just put it that way. All right. And so there's a difference. And we're seeing again that this uptick right now of this activity, all kinds of activity, I think, and strange things and paranormal things, paranormal interest, demigod interest in demigods, all of this. And I think that the enemy is he's just putting out there his little his little nuggets, right? And I think, again, my opinion, I could be wrong. Maybe the enemy. I think that the enemy has got many avenues that he's trying to go down, because Listen, he's doing the best he can to figure out because he doesn't know the day or the hour. We know that, but he can tell, just as we can tell, that the time is getting close. That the time is near. You know, when you begin to see all these things, know that the time is near. And so he's trying many avenues by which to deceive people. I can't. Oh, okay. I think that he's off for just a moment. So,
Yeah, sorry
okay,
about
you're
that.
back. All right.
When I was wife's calling.
Oh,
Hey,
no problem.
we've got it's 2:20 now, and I've got about 4 or 5 questions that I think warrant asking, being answered, not asked. But I don't know if do you have time for some questions, Q&A?
Let's try. Let me see. It's 12:15 here. Let's see what we can do.
Okay. I'll do this one easier because it's easy. Somebody was asking, let's see, uh, is that a cat? Caterlin is asking, is that a bear on your desk?
Oh no, that's a tiger.
Yeah, it looks like, I was gonna say, it looks like some kind of a cat, wild cat.
Yeah, yeah, that's what it is. That was it belonged to my wife's grandmother, and we all had the opportunity, all the family members, to go into her house, and everyone could take one thing that they wanted to take, and that was the thing that I took. And so yeah, I just thought it was like kind of cool, and
Uh,
uh, so yeah, so that's it.
okay. Question from James Wells. Um, Pete, are we going to be able to see exactly what we look like in our glorified bodies in heaven? And will we even be concerned about it since there will be no more vanity? I think we'll know what we'll look like. And I think it'll just be, I think everybody's going to be awesome looking. So I don't think there's going to
Awesome
be any
looking.
need to be jealous, like everybody, unless people are jealous of my handlebar mustache that I have rolled out to about here, and then my big sideburns, big mullet in the back or something. If people could be jealous of my hair, I don't know, but I know that we'll know what we'll look like. I don't know that will be anything we focus on at all.
Yeah, I agree. I look at it like this. Our bodies are not going to be those bodies that are obviously subject to sin. And a lot of the things that we have with our bodies right now, we see the effects of sin because we're in a sinful body. These bodies that because of sin, there's decay and death and all of that. And so that decay is different with every one of us. We all have, if you would, physical abnormalities in different ways, and things that, as the years go by, are continuing to change and all of that. I mean, when I was younger, I had a lot of hair. Now I don't have a lot of hair. But what happened? Well, it's the effects of these bodies of decay, and other things with our bodies too. So our bodies are not going to have those physical effects of decay. So that we know, and all I know is that when we read in the book of beginnings, we read in Genesis that everything that God made, it was good. The Garden of Eden was absolutely beautiful. God doesn't make junk. I think we're going to look. I think we're going to look good, But we're also not going to be overly focused on that. I think we kind of focus on a lot of those things right now. Part of it is because we do have sin in our lives, and because of that sin, we get jealous or envious of the way maybe somebody else looks. But we're not going to be dealing with that sin, so that's not going to be a problem for us, and we're not going to be concerned about, well, we think that this person looks better than we look, or whatever, or that guy's got abs and I've got a dad bod, or I don't know, but we're not going to have that problem because we're not going to be thinking in worldly ways, but our bodies are also not going to be bearing the effects of sin anymore. So just on all of those things, it's not going to be a problem. But I know that God doesn't make junk, and when God made everything, everything was good. And kind of on a side note, the best mangoes that I've had in Thailand. Like just absolutely phenomenal mangoes. And when I view when God makes everything new, and I think the mangoes are going to be so fantastic. I think everything is going to be amazing. And yeah, and the same with our bodies too. But we're not going to over focus on it either.
Okay, this is from Paula Compton. Question: Cuba is a collapsed communist nation only 90 miles from our border. Russia has abandoned them as an ally. Will Trump give any attention to Cuba? Lots of desperate believers there. I think if we're looking at the Panama Canal, which Trump has already made mention of, if he's looking at that, he's got to be looking at Cuba because his main concern is keeping China out of the Western Hemisphere. And so I would say yes. I think there's probably a good chance that we could see Cuba get freed up here in the next couple of years, should the Lord tarry.
I
Um,
say he needs. I
I don't know.
say he
What are your
needs to get.
thoughts?
I say he needs to get Iran out of the Western Hemisphere. And China, of course, as well. Yes, but Iran, we know that Iran is very active in the Western Hemisphere as well. He's got a lot of problems to deal with. I mean, he really does. He's got a lot of problems to deal with. China is a tremendously big problem. I mean, they are developing nukes big time right now. They're growing their navy big time right now as well. Varying technologies and all of that. China is a real big problem. It really is. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what goes on there with the Panama Canal, and you know, I don't know. I think there's a pretty good chance that we might even pull out of NATO because they're not doing their keeping their end of the bargain. I mean, the U.S. is the number one financial backbone of NATO. The U.S. is the number one military force of NATO. All right, and these other countries, they're just not pulling their weight, man. They're not pulling their weight, and that's just not how Trump rolls. So I think that we could pull out of NATO, and I know I'm extending this a little bit lateral from that question, but going off of that, I can also see it from this standpoint because listen, we know that beast empire is going to develop, all right, and whether we're talking about 10 regions of the world, whether we're talking about more Rome centric, whether we're talking about the tech end of that, which the tech end of that will definitely be involved in it. You can't divorce that from it, I don't believe. But we already see that Europe is continuing to consolidate as we speak right now, because the nations of the world are realizing there's trouble in America, and America is all over the map. They can't trust us right now. And even under Trump, look, I mean, Trump is only 4 years. What's after Trump? All right, where's it going after there? So, so I'm saying all of that because the world is going to be moving in that direction for what we see to take place ultimately with the 10 kings and all, and and the little horn and all of this, right? And Revelation. So US has to back out. And I think one of those ways that we're going to perhaps back out is through NATO. But I think there's a lot of things that are going to be happening, and I think 2025 here, guys, is going to be a very monumental and pivotal year in all of these things.
Yeah, I agree. I think that 2025 is going to be the year where things start kicking off in a very prophetic way. And you mentioned earlier about Trump not being able to get done everything he wants to get done, and I don't disagree with that. But I do think he is going to make the most headway with his dealings with Israel in and possibly greenlighting some kind of a third temple and greenlighting the annexation of Judea and Samaria. I think those things are definitely coming here in this, as well as with Cuba, with Panama Canal, Greenland. I mean, who knows?
Well,
Question.
the more, Pete, that that Israel is going to be entering into a time where they feel secure around them, or more secure, I believe we should say, might be even better, more secure than they have probably ever felt since the War of Independence there. I think that those things then will enable them to be able to, hey, we need to keep on moving forward with what we want to do and with these plans, and it'll make it all the easier for them to move forward with the temple. Yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Question. Do the sons of God have seed?
it's a great question. That's a real great question. That's it's really interesting, and I've pondered this for a long time. I don't know what LA has actually said on that. I'm sure that LA has addressed that, and I don't know if you know what LA has said on that. Maybe you've heard him speak on that, but it's very interesting. Uh, so I don't know. Have you heard him saying anything on that?
I don't know specifically on that, but I think they have the ability to create. Like I mentioned earlier, they can't do it
Well, not
ex
not
nihilo.
create,
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah, create.
To
I think
manipulate
to
it.
manipulate. They were there at creation. They saw how everything is put together. They are vastly more intelligent than any human. I think what we're seeing with like the gray aliens and some of these other uh, supernatural things is that you see that they have life, but they don't have any soul. There's nothing in it. There's nothing spiritual going on, and so they're simply uh what do they call it, manufactured biology or something, like these gray aliens. And I can't remember exact term that LA uses, but I think the same thing is the same with um these Sasquatch, the Bigfoot, Dogman, all of that stuff. I think these are demonic entities, but like some of these, the more physical ones, they don't have any life inside their eyes. They have like dead eyes, and to me, that's a sign that there's no soul there, or it's detached from whatever. It's like looking at an animal. You can look at an animal and look them right in the eyes, and there's life there. There's a spark of life inside of them. But these other things, like these gray aliens that have like the big bulbous eyes and they're just black, or the black-eyed children, all this other stuff, like to me, they may be manufactured by fallen angels, but they don't have souls. There's no life in them, and they're prohibited, from my understanding, from procreating with human women after the flood incident. What is that? 4,500 years ago or so. Now the question is, do they have seed? I know they can manifest physically, and they eat. So if they can put food in their mouth and presumably down to their stomach, and their body does something with it, processes it, I don't know, digest it. It seems like there's internal working organs if they manifest in the flesh. Now that's something that we just can't be dogmatic about, because I don't think anybody knows, other than God knows exactly how that works, you
Right.
know.
Well, two things. First of all, I do have just a little turn on something that you had mentioned. They're vastly more intelligent than humans. Here's the thing: than humans right now in our current state. but not when we're glorified. Not when we're glorified. But what is happening, however it has happened, all right, is what I believe that I see. All right, I'm just going to say it this way. What I believe that I see is a manipulation of the human genome, all the way back in Genesis 6. Exactly how, I don't know. I can't speak to that, but we've seen evidence of those things. And a side note that I'm going to kind of bring it to is in Revelation 13, where we see the mark of the beast, and elsewhere in Revelation, where we see the mark of the beast, right? We know that those who receive the mark will not be redeemable. All right. So, for example, those of the the Anakim and the Nephilim and Zoomzim and all of these, they are not, they could not have been redeemable, right? Because what happened is they were not fully man. What we see in Revelation is that there are those who receive the mark, they will not be redeemable. What I argue, again, I'm just putting out there a thought. We're all trying to figure this out, guys. And as the time goes by, things become clearer for us when we talk about Bible prophecy, you know. But what I put out there is that there's something that is involved with the actual mark of the beast that infiltrates the human genome from being fully human, therefore not redeemable anymore. But we know that those who receive the mark will not be redeemable. Is there somehow a connection between these things? Again, I can't speak to that. I have no idea, but I just find it rather interesting. I don't know. What do you think?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I feel like there is I think after the flood incident, that those angels involved were chained in Tartarus. But I also think that God may have changed something with the angelic order so that when they manifest physically, there are certain things they can do and certain things they can't do. Does that make sense? It doesn't say it in
Uh-huh.
the Bible. This is purely
Yeah,
just me thinking.
we're just,
Um,
it's. I mean, honestly, guys, the best that I can do is just speculate. All right. But I mean, but we definitely have, if you want to call it, biologics on this. When you're talking about these Nephilim skulls and bones and those kinds of things, we have biologics on them. I know that even Mondo Gonzalez has actually seen with his own eyes, I believe, touched with his own hands, one of those as well. Him and I were talking. I think it was off air one day, but Mondo would have to speak a little bit more clearly to that. You read in the Bible about King Og, right? All of this stuff. I mean, guys, it's all there. In fact, I talked about it in our Deuteronomy study on that we're going through on Wednesday nights. I talked about it, I don't know, probably a couple months ago when we got to that part, and it's absolutely fascinating, guys. You can't make this stuff up, you know. So, yeah, I mean, what do you do with that? Now, how the how we don't know, but we're talking about that when we're talking about the gravitic propulsion systems too. How? I don't know. I don't know. But when we have multiple eyewitness accounts from our military, and some video footage of this stuff, right? That's taken from our Air Force, and when you got the Pentagon talking about it, well, okay. When you got Congress talking about it, I think there's something going on. How? I have no idea. I don't know.
yeah. Okay, here's the other question. This gnarly news was reading Jeremiah chapter 18 through 25, and then in the 23rd chapter in verse 19, it says, "Behold, a whirlwind of the Lord has gone forth in fury, a violent whirlwind. It will fall violently on the head of the wicked, and the anger of the Lord will not turn back until he has executed and performed the thoughts of his heart. In the latter days you will understand it perfectly." This is also repeated, this exact same passage in Jeremiah 30, verses 23 through 24. And Gnarly was asking, what's the timing on it?
What's the timing on what it's saying in Jeremiah? Is that what they're asking?
Yeah.
Good
Yeah.
question.
What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah.
I think that's still
I mean,
future.
I think it is still future. I mean, we don't know the exact timing on it, but I mean, but that is, I see that as still future. But near future.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Yep.
So yeah, so I think that to me is the it's still a future event. It's not happened yet. There is let's see, this question here is, this is asking sorry, I'm losing my app, my place in the app here. I think I'd skipped a question, that's why I'm all boogered up.
It happens to me too.
Question from Tego Arcana Die. I understand the Messianic Jews will be raptured, so will the 144,000. Well, the 144,000 will be at some point during the tribulation, or either they die, or I don't know what happens to the 144,000.
No, the
We see,
144,000 are sealed by God. The 144,000
yeah,
are sealed by God.
we see them in, I think, chapter 14, at the beginning of 14, but I think that's John looking at the end from chapter 14. He sees them on the hill with Christ on Mount Zion. 144 will be to the rest of them. Okay, so will the 144,000 that will preach to the rest of them be directly appointed by Jesus from each tribe? Any ideas? So will the
Mention
144,000
that
that will
last
preach
part.
the rest of them?
Mention that.
Oh, I see. Okay. So in Revelation 7, where the 12,000 from the 12 tribes are listed there, minus Dan and Ephraim, it says, will those 144,000, will they be directly appointed by Jesus from each tribe? Like say Paul of Tarsus was. I don't know.
Directly directly appointed by Jesus. Well, I mean, the Lord is in control of these things that are going to be taking place. So, um, I mean, I never thought of it as being worded that way, but I mean, the Lord is in control of all of that. So yes, I mean, they would need to be. I mean, this is something that God is doing, and it makes it clear in the Word that they will be sealed by God. So
Yeah.
which is rather interesting too, because I mean, you've got, for better lack of words, you've got those who receive the mark of the beast that are pretty much going to be sealed by the enemy, right? And you got these 144,000 that are going to be sealed by God. Then you've got the what we call the tribulation saints, because the church is not seen except for in the earlier on there in Revelation, obviously, with the churches, and then at the end. So you got the tribulation saints that are kind of in between all of this, that are the ones that are going to really be suffering, but they're sealed by God. And so yeah, so I mean, it's God that's doing this.
Um, Old Softy question. Do you think we will be able to change what we look like? I think so. I don't see why not.
What does that mean? Change what we look like?
In our glorified form. But what change what? Like hair, clothes, I don't know. I mean, are we going to wear white robes for the rest of eternity, or is there a time when we change into something else? I don't know. Maybe it's not anything we think about at that time. And obviously, this is pure speculation on our part because we're not going to know that until we get there.
I don't know. You mean I might not be able to wear a hoodie?
I think I honestly don't think we. I mean, I don't see why we couldn't change if it's we're thinking the
Right.
first,
We
say, 1,000 years, first 10,000 years, but after 1 trillion years, are we still wearing the same? I don't know.
No, I don't think
That's
so. No, because I mean, I mean, let's understand that white is a symbol of purity. Okay. White is a symbol of purity. The robes may even, I don't know, the robes may even be symbolic of authority. We know that we're going to be judging angels, right? And this is what the word of God says. So maybe we're in our, like that you go into the judge's chambers, and he's got on his, or you go back in the day. I think they might even still do this. I don't know if they still do this in England, where they put on the weird kind of curly wig thing. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
When they're
yeah.
judging, so I mean, maybe that's our judges' clothes or something, But white is always symbolic of righteousness and purity. Of course, we know that righteousness is the righteousness of the saints is because of the righteousness in and by and through Jesus Christ, our Savior and Lord. So we're righteous by way of our receiving Jesus Christ as Savior and Lord, and He has cleansed us and purified us from our sins. And so that's how I look at that. But I don't see anything in Scripture that indicates that we're always wearing the same clothing for all eternity. But I mean, it's a great question.
Yeah. Last question here from Annette. Questions.
Is it
First
Annette Hamilton?
Corinthians Hamilton
Okay. Hi, Annette.
13:12. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I shall be known. I believe that has to do with the veil growing thin. What do you think?
Well, we know in part because we're limited. I mean, like one of the things that they talk about right now, even the scientific community talks about, is how we only utilize, and I forget what percentage it is. Let's say 5%. I don't remember what it is right now. Let's just say it's 5% of our brain computing capacities. I think a lot of these people in Washington. Bureaucracy are using even less than 5%. you know but anyhow, so we're only using a small amount. In fact, even the eye, how amazing the eye is. I mean, you just do some simple research on how amazing the eye is, guys. It will just put you in awe of God. And yet, when we are in our glorified bodies, guys, we are going to be able to see color spectrums that we can't even see today with our eyes because we're not at full capacity. We're in a fallen body, a decayed body. Okay. So we see in part, we understand in part because we're not it's almost like we're not dealing with a full deck right now. All right, but we will be. Some of the guys, some of us are maybe a little better than others, but we will be when we are glorified. That's what goes back to when I said to you earlier that, yeah, that right now we see the great intelligence with the fallen ones. Okay, but it's not going to be like that down the road. We're going to
Yeah.
be at full capacity, and that full capacity is going to be incredible. So we see in part, then we're going to see. Yeah, I mean, I say see physically. We will see way more then. We understand in part now. We're going to understand in full. I kind of look at it like with my kids. I mean, it's an open book. My kids have entry. They have keys to my house. They can come in anytime that they want, come and go, do whatever they want to do. You want to go in the fridge, you want to get a zero water, whatever you want to do. You don't ask questions. You go in the fridge. My house is your house. Mi casa, su casa. So there's that free, that free reign, that free ability, that kind of thing. And God's not going to be withholding things from us. The things that we want to know, that we want to understand, the questions that we're going to have, guys. I just believe there's going to be like this information dump that's going to be in our brains because we're going to be able to handle that. We're going to have the understanding and the full computing capability to process all of that information at that time. And what do we see man is trying to do right now? Man is trying to do a workaround around God. All right. That's what Elon
Yeah.
Musk is doing. I mean, he's just probably the most famous, but there's others that are trying to do other things that they got other names for it, but it's neurally kind of technology and that kind of stuff. But man is trying to find a workaround for God. We don't need God. You can be your own God. and Shirley MacLaine years ago, out on a limb, and you're God, Oprah Winfrey, she thinks she's God, and all of that. But so man is always trying to. There again, there's something deep down inside where we recognize that there is an eternal component, right, and that whole spiritual component, and what our fallen flesh mixed with the adversary and all of his influences around us is trying to do. He tries to manipulate that flesh into the workaround, right? I mean, go all the way back to Nimrod, right, and go back to the Tower of Babel and all of these kinds of things, right? A workaround, a workaround, a workaround. But uh, but we're going to have an understanding then, and a comprehension and physical capabilities then that we do not have right now, and it's going to be absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing.
I totally agree. And I'm if I can have my druthers, I would have my breakfast taco tree out in the front yard. Just I walk out and I pick a delicious breakfast taco, ready
Mm,
to go whenever you want it. And you don't gain any weight. That's the best part. You can eat all you want. All right.
that is awesome. All the cookies and chocolate. Uh, yeah, nice. And tacos.
Well,
My wife
hey,
makes great tacos.
oh, I'm coming over. Um, I have got to begin winding things down. I've got to go pick up kids from school and all that fun stuff that your kids are already grown, right? They're all old and stuff.
Oh,
Uh,
hallelujah.
hey, if let me see if I can save this because it keeps wanting to play the keeps wanting to do the video. I don't want to do the video. All
Hey,
right,
while
let
you're
me
while you're
see.
looking at that, everybody, I just wanted to say again hi to everyone, and I love you guys. It's thank you, by the way, for having me on today, Pete. It's been
Oh yeah.
fun. Some great talk and conversation, and I hope you guys had a good time on the program today as well. Because I know that Pete and I have a great time with you guys, and we love you guys. We have just such a wonderful family, extended church family, and everything. And you guys are the bomb.
Yes, thank you, moderators. Jules, I think thank you for the super chat there. Appreciate it. Uh, if you're if you want, in my closing kind of comments here, I'll be on again with Tom tomorrow. Are you going to be on today or tomorrow, Curt?
On Tom's channel?
No, just in. Are you doing a live tonight or tomorrow?
Oh no, no, I'm not. Let me think about that. No, no, I'm not.
Okay. All right. I was going to
And hey, if
show
I
this to.
can I
Go
share
ahead.
something really quick, by the way? Somebody had a question a lot earlier, and Pookie had sent it to me. I forget who it was. Hi there, Derek Otto. Good to see you, man. And Just Vicky, Coco Bear, all you guys. But someone had a question regarding the prophecy conference. So we're hosting the prophecy conference. All right, the prophecy conference is put on by Hope for Our Time. So it's a Hope for Our Times conference that is at our church. I know a lot of people are asking about the particulars of the schedule. The particulars of the schedule should be coming out any day, and it's going to be posted there at Hope for Our Times. So all of that information is over there, or will be over there. So all I have right now is just the tentative schedule, but they're working on the details of kind of honing all of that in, and of course everything with the holidays, it has everybody busy, so that information should be out on Hope for Our Times at any point. So I hope that answers that question. So sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no worries. Thank you, guys. I was going to show you this. If you is that is that coming out right or is that coming
Yeah.
out backwards?
Yep. I see it.
Yeah, if you guys watch that, it's a debate between Wes Huff, who's the guy on the right here, the white guy, and then Billy Carson is the other guy. Billy is he's been on Joe Rogan. He's pretty well known in the alien seed, Anunnaki, that kind of communities and stuff. But he just got dismantled by Wes Huff, who is a biblical um, what does he call him? He's a biblical historian, but he mostly deals with the manuscripts the documents. He's well versed in Hinduism, Islam, all the ancient cults and Gnostic groups and writings, Book of Enoch, all that stuff. So, but Billy Carson was said numerous times, that Jesus, was a good man and that was it, and he never died on the cross, and he denies most of the fundamentals of our faith. But if you want a good pick me up, I mean, he gets dismantled by Wes Huff in a very polite way, and basically ruined this guy forevermore. It seems like, and who knows, he'll be back with some new whatever. But anyway, so if you guys want to watch that, it's worth watching. The host is a little painful to watch at times because he's supposedly a Christian, but he seems very not well versed in what he's talking about or even asking the questions. But other than that, it's a good debate. And then that guy's also going to be on with Joe Rogan. I guess it was such a commanding performance by him in this debate that Joe Rogan had him on. So that's, pray for Joe Rogan for his salvation. I think he's searching. Um, I think he's at least more honest about it than most folks. But he's just did an interview with him. Hopefully that had an impact on him. I don't know, but it's the first time that Joe Rogan's had a straight up theologian on with him, rather than just a Christian that can talk about certain things. This guy is like the expert in all of that stuff. So, anyways, I've got to run. Pastor Curt, thank you for being on with me. I know it was last minute. I hit you up yesterday and said, "Hey, you want to jump on today?" So I appreciate you coming on in your time, and look forward to being with you in Ireland. That's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Down
crazy.
there. So
It's gonna be cold. I don't know. I,
yeah, and
I don't have much of a tolerance for cold, so that's I'm gonna be bundled up. But
how, how cold is it there where you're in Las Vegas right now?
anything that's less than 60 degrees is too cold for me. So
In
I like it
England,
hot.
in England, and if anybody from the UK is on, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but in England, if you have 73 degrees, I'm assuming that's Fahrenheit or more each day, that's considered a heat wave at 73 degrees.
Oh dear.
And I would love it I keep my house on 70 degrees, so like apparently I live in a perpetual heat wave. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Thank you guys. God bless you. I've got my phone starting to blow up and kids I got to get and stuff. So I will see you
All
guys
right,
on
guys.
tomorrow. I'll be on with Tom tomorrow, I think at noon. So I will see you guys then and take care. God bless you. And we'll see you soon.
All right. God bless everyone.